We've all felt the sting of silence. That moment when someone you once shared laughter, late night talks, and deep connection with suddenly vanishes. No calls, no texts, just nothing. And in that silence, questions echo louder than ever. Why did he disappear? Will he ever come back? But then, almost like clockwork, just when you've started to rebuild, heal, and move forward, he returns. A message, a like, a hey, how have you been? So what causes this return? Is it love? Is it guilt? Or is there something deeper at play? Something rooted in human psychology and emotional dynamics. Today we're breaking down exactly why men come back after no contact and how your power during that silence may be stronger than you ever realized. When someone walks away or pulls back, the natural impulse is to chase. It's human. We crave connection. And when it's taken from us, the emptiness it leaves behind can feel unbearable. But there's a hidden power in resisting that urge. When you don't reach out, when you don't send that text or check in just to see how they're doing, you're not just showing restraint. You're creating space, and that space, while uncomfortable, is absolutely necessary because emotional space creates contrast. It disrupts a routine they've gotten used to. Think about it. When someone hears from you constantly, when you're always there to answer the call or reply instantly, your presence becomes expected. And what's expected easily becomes taken for granted. But the moment you go quiet, you interrupt the pattern. You make them stop. You make them feel something they haven't felt in a while. Your absence. And that absence speaks volumes. It whispers to them in quiet moments. It shows up when they're scrolling through their phone and your name isn't lighting up the screen anymore. It creeps in during a song, a memory, or even a joke that only the two of you used to understand. The space you create doesn't just highlight your silence, it magnifies everything you once were to them. Your laughter, your support, your energy, your love. See, people don't usually process feelings while they're still in the situation. They process them when it's over, when there's no more contact. As long as you're there, they don't have to face what they're losing. But when you step away, that's when the real reflection begins. That's when they start asking themselves, did I make a mistake? Was she really as strong and valuable as I now remember her being? And those questions don't surface when you're chasing them. They surface when you're not. This isn't about playing games. It's about giving someone the emotional clarity that can only come through absence. You're not punishing them. You're not manipulating. You're simply choosing not to give your energy to someone who isn't showing up. You're letting them feel the weight of their choices, and in that weight often comes regret, realization, and sometimes even a renewed desire. And here's what's important. Emotional space doesn't just work on them. It works on you too. In the silence, you start to see things more clearly. You reconnect with yourself. You gain perspective that you couldn't access when you were too close to the situation. You begin to understand your own patterns, your worth, and what you truly want. Not just from them, but from any relationship moving forward. This is why so many men return after no contact, because in your silence they hear the loudest message of all. I don't need you to complete me. And that message is powerful. It shifts the dynamic. It forces them to reconsider the way they left, the way they treated you, and the way they might have underestimated your strength. It shows that your world doesn't revolve around them. And that kind of independence is magnetic. Sometimes the space you create becomes a mirror for them. It reflects back their own behavior. They start to wonder why. they left, or if they really meant it. They begin to feel the emotional consequences of their distance, something they didn't have to deal with when you were still reaching out, still holding the connection together. But once you step back, they're left alone with their own thoughts. And those thoughts, they can be more haunting than any confrontation. Men don't always process emotions the same way women do. Many retreat, shut down, or distract themselves when things feel complicated. But time and space break through those distractions. With enough quiet, even the most guarded heart starts to listen. It's in that space that they often come back, not because they were forced to, not because you begged, but because they had the freedom to choose. And when someone chooses to return unprompted, it means so much more. And sure, not every man comes back, and honestly, not every man should. But when they do, it's almost always because the silence made them see you differently. They didn't feel pressured, they didn't feel cornered, they felt your absence, and in it, they realized your presence was something they miss, something they maybe even need. And that realization, it doesn't come through constant reminders, it comes through space. So, if you're in a season of silence right now, don't panic, don't fill it with noise just to feel connected again. Let the silence do its work. Let it shape clarity, not just for him, but for you. Because the right person will not only notice your absence, they'll come to respect your strength for creating it. And when they do return, it won't be because you chased them. It will be because they chose you. And that choice, that's everything. There's a simple truth that often gets overlooked in relationships. The things we see all the time, the things we know we can have at any moment, tend to lose their impact. Not because they're not beautiful or meaningful, but because they become predictable. Familiarity can breed comfort, yes, but it can also breed complacency. And that's where scarcity comes in. Because when something becomes less available, it naturally becomes more valuable. We're wired to respond to scarcity. It's not manipulation, it's psychology. Think about it in terms of anything we desire. Limited edition shoes, exclusive events, rare collectibles. What do they all have in common? To get a hand drawn up, there's not enough to go around. And that limited nature makes people want them even more. The same principle applies to people, to relationships, and yes, to you. When you're always available, when you're constantly replying, checking in, initiating conversation, making yourself emotionally accessible, you become predictable. You become part of the background. You're appreciated, maybe, but not felt. Your energy gets taken for granted, not because the other person is bad, but because you're there, always there. But the moment you pull back, the moment your energy becomes harder to access, something shifts. You're no longer a guarantee. You become a maybe. And that maybe, that's where the desire starts to build. People value what they could lose. And when a man senses that you're no longer sitting by the phone waiting for him to return, he starts to see you in a new light. He starts to wonder who else might be seeing your value. He starts to question whether someone else is getting your attention, your time, your affection. Because suddenly, it's not guaranteed for him anymore. And that uncertainty sparks something deep. It creates urgency, interest, intrigue, scarcity makes people pay attention. It changes the dynamic from she'll always be there to wait, where did she go? And that shift is powerful. It causes reflection. It wakes them up from the emotional autopilot they've been on. Because when you step out of reach, they finally have to reach for you. But here's what's important. Scarcity only increases value when it's authentic. This isn't about pretending you're busy or playing hard to get. It's about actually living your life, actually prioritizing your joy, actually realizing that your time and energy are precious and not everyone gets access to them, especially not someone who doesn't value them in the first place. When you operate from that mindset, you don't have to fake anything. You don't need to send mixed signals. You're just not available for nonsense anymore. You're not available for half-hearted communication, for breadcrumbing, for emotional laziness. And when you become that kind of woman, when your availability is earned, not given freely, you immediately elevate yourself in the eyes of anyone paying attention. Men respond to this deeply because what they start to realize is that the connection they had with you wasn't ordinary, wasn't something they could just replace. And once that realization sets in, the chase often begins. But this time, it's not about ego, it's about value. Your value, the value that only became clear when you became scarce. There's a misconception that being available is the same thing as being loving or kind or nurturing. But availability without boundaries is not a virtue. It's vulnerability without protection. You can be warm and open and still protect your energy. You can love deeply and still choose to be selective with your time. In fact, the most powerful connections are built on mutual appreciation. And appreciation comes when there's something to appreciate, something rare, something respected. So when a man comes back, after you've pulled away, after you've stopped giving your energy so freely, it's not always because he suddenly changed. Sometimes it's because you did. You stopped making yourself the easiest option. You stopped proving your worth and started living it. You let your actions show what words never could. I am not a backup plan. I am not second best. I am not waiting in the wings for someone to notice me. I am the main character in my life. And anyone who wants a role has to show up like they mean it. And when that energy hits, when a man feels that shift in you, it's magnetic. It's undeniable. Because now he's not just thinking about what he had, he's thinking about what he could be losing for good. And that's when the messages come, the calls, the check-ins, the attempts to reconnect. See, your absence made him realize your presence was rare. That's what scarcity does. It reintroduces you as someone to be valued, not someone to be managed. It reframes the entire dynamic. And the best part, you're not doing it to win him back. You're doing it because you finally understand your own worth. You're doing it because you've stopped handing out access to people who haven't earned it. And in doing so, you stop chasing and start attracting. And that attraction, it's not fleeting, it's not shallow. It's rooted in something real. The understanding that you are valid not because you begged for it, but peculiable. You are rare, and you are no longer for everyone. And the moment he realizes that, he'll start moving differently. Because scarcity doesn't just increase value, it demands respect. There's something undeniably attractive about a woman who knows who she is. Not in a loud, attention-seeking way, but in that quiet, grounded confidence that doesn't need to beg, prove, or explain. Self-respect is that energy. It's the invisible force that shifts every interaction. And when you truly embody it, it becomes magnetic. People feel it, even when you say nothing at all. When a man walks away or pulls back, the most common reaction is panic. The fear of loss kicks in, and that fear tries to convince you that you need to fight for his attention, that you need to remind him what you had, that you need to prove you're still worth it. But here's the truth. Chasing someone who's drifting away doesn't bring them closer. It usually pushes them further. Because when someone sees that you're willing to abandon yourself just to keep them, it doesn't inspire love. It signals insecurity. And insecurity is never magnetic. But self-respect changes everything. It's the quiet decision to not beg for clarity, to not shrink yourself in hopes of fitting into someone else's comfort zone. It's choosing to walk away from breadcrumbs even when you're hungry for connection, because deep down, you know you deserve more than scraps. When you respect yourself enough to not chase, to not break your boundaries just to maintain a relationship, you send a powerful message. I know my value. I'm not afraid to be alone. I'm not waiting to be chosen. I've already chosen myself. And men feel that. They might not articulate it, but they sense it. It challenges them. It wakes them up. Because suddenly they're not dealing with someone who will tolerate being taken for granted. They're dealing with someone who won't settle. And that kind of energy, it demands a different level of effort, a different level of presence. When you hold your ground, you change the emotional equation. You no longer make it easy for someone to dip in and out of your life as they please. You no longer say yes just to avoid conflict. You say yes when it aligns with your values and no when it doesn't. And that kind of clarity is rare. It creates a clear boundary. And boundaries are where real attraction begins. Because real love isn't about losing yourself in someone else. It's about two whole people choosing each other, not out of fear or need, but out of mutual respect and desire. When a man sees that you're not afraid to walk away from anything that doesn't honor you, it doesn't repel him. It draws him in. Because deep down, everyone wants to be with someone who has standards, someone who doesn't need them but chooses them. That's what makes self-respect so powerful. It's not about arrogance. It's not about acting like you don't care. It's about truly knowing that your worth isn't dependent on someone else's recognition of it. When you stop basing your self-esteem on whether or not he calls, whether or not he texts, whether or not he comes back, you take back your power. You no longer live in reaction, you live in intention. And the irony is, it's usually when you least expect it. When you finally let go, when you've stopped checking your phone, when you're fully focused on your growth and your joy, that he returns. Not because you manipulated the situation, not because you tried to make him jealous or played it cool, but because he can feel the shift. You're no longer waiting, you're rising. That energy is undeniable. It shows in the way you speak, in the way you move, in the way you no longer tolerate inconsistency. It's not about revenge, not about teaching him a lesson. It's about choosing peace over drama. And that calm, grounded energy of self-respect becomes the very thing that draws him back in. Men are attracted to women who are anchored in their worth. It's not about looks, it's not about being perfect, it's about how you carry yourself when things don't go your way. It's how you respond to distance, to silence, to uncertainty. Do you chase or do you choose yourself? Do you react or do you rise? Because here's the thing, a woman who respects herself becomes unforgettable. Not because she tries to be, but because she refuses to be anything less than who she is. She's not afraid of losing a man who isn't willing to show up, and that kind of strength, it echoes long after she walks away. So yes, men return. They come back when they feel your absence, but they stay when they feel your strength. When they know you won't tolerate half-hearted love. When they realize they have to meet you at your level or risk losing you forever. And that level, it's set by your self-respect. So if you're in a place right now where you're wondering what to do, how to get him to see your worth, how to make him come back, the answer isn't out there. It's within you. You don't need to convince him. You just need to remember who you are. And once you do, he will too. Feelings don't disappear just because someone walks away. Love doesn't switch off like a light. Emotions, especially the deep and complex ones built over time, don't simply vanish into thin air. They get buried, they get pushed down, covered up with distraction, denial, or avoidance. But they don't go away. And that's exactly why men so often return after a period of no contact. It's not always about missing your voice or your face. Sometimes it's about the weight of the feelings they tried to outrun finally catching up with them. People leave for all kinds of reasons. Fear, confusion, timing, emotional immaturity, even ego. Some leave not because they don't care, but because they don't know how to handle what they're feeling. When emotions get overwhelming, some people shut down, they pull away, not to hurt you, but to protect themselves. But the thing is, feelings don't stay gone. They surface, they rise, and when there's space, through silence, no chasing, no constant reminders of your presence, those unresolved emotions begin to echo. At first, they might ignore it, they're busy, hang out with friends, dive into work, maybe even date other people. But late at night, when it's quiet, when the distractions wear off, that emotional noise creeps back in. A memory hits, a song plays, they pass the restaurant where you once laughed together for hours, and suddenly they feel something, a tug, a sting, a softness they thought they left behind. And that feeling doesn't come from logic, it comes from connection. Real connection leaves a mark. You can't fake it and you can't forget it. Even if the relationship was messy, even if it ended abruptly, if it was real, it lingers. And it's that lingering that becomes louder over time, not quieter. That's why so many men return, not immediately, but weeks or months later. Because it takes time for emotions to resurface. It takes silence for clarity to form. When there's no contact, they're left alone with their thoughts. There's no distraction from your messages, no comfort in knowing you're still there if they change their mind, just quiet. And that quiet becomes a mirror. It reflects everything they've been avoiding. They start to remember not just the good times, but the way you made them feel. The safety, the excitement, the intimacy. And even the moments that didn't go well. They remember how you handled them, how you stayed kind, how you showed up with patience. Those things start to haunt them in the best and worst ways. But here's the twist. They don't always return because they're ready. Sometimes they come back to test the waters, to see if the door is still open. Because unresolved feelings don't always come with resolved intentions. It's important to understand that. Just because someone feels something doesn't mean they're prepared to do better. But their return is proof of one thing. They never truly let you go. Something inside them was unfinished. And that unfinished feeling has power. It's why no contact is so effective. It gives space for what was buried to rise. It removes the emotional noise so they can feel the weight of what they lost. And even if they don't come running back, they remember. They carry the memory of your love in their heart, whether they admit it or not. Because love doesn't dissolve. It waits. It teaches. It shapes us. That's why emotional silence is not a void. It's a container. A space where truth begins to emerge. A space where unresolved emotions have room to be felt. It's in that space that they ask themselves the questions they were too distracted to face before. Why did I leave? Was I scared? Was I wrong? Did I lose something real? And if the connection was meaningful, those questions don't go away. They grow louder. Even the most emotionally unavailable man, when left in silence, will eventually confront what he tried to suppress. And that confrontation is what drives him back, not because he's weak, but because he's human. He may not even fully understand why he feels the need to reconnect. He just knows something still lives inside him. Something with your name on it. But here's where your power lies. His return is not your validation. It's just confirmation that what you shared was real. Whether or not you let him back into your life depends on what he's done with the time apart. Has he grown? Is he clearer? Is he ready? Because you're not the same woman he left. You've changed. You've evolved. And just because he still feels something doesn't mean he gets access again. That part is up to you. Still, it's a beautiful thing to know that you are unforgettable, that even in your silence, you made an impact, that even when you stopped reaching out, the memory of you continued to echo in his heart. Unresolved feelings have a way of doing that. They don't need reminders, they don't need pressure, they just need time and space. And when they're real, they always find their way to the surface. So if you're wondering whether he still thinks about you, whether he still feels something, the answer is often yes. Not because you chased him, but because real love, once planted, doesn't die easily. It may be buried, it may be ignored, but given enough silence, it always rises.